Welcome to Memorial Hermann Facebook Live. We are here today with Dr. Mary Aitken. She is Pediatrician-in-Chief at Children's Memorial Hermann Hospital and Chair of the Department of Pediatrics at McGovern Medical School at UTHealth. Welcome, Doctor.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, today we're talking about vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. Children's Memorial Hermann Hospital started administering shots to this age group last week. I was there. The parents were very excited to finally be able to vaccinate their children. I would imagine you and the other doctors here feel the same way.
It's been a long-awaited, very exciting week for us as pediatricians and for parents really across the country. I think that there was a mixture of relief and joy that was really palpable in our hospital and in our clinics all week.
Now, the process did take a while to get here for this age group. Tell us a little bit about the approval process for the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for the 5 to 11 age group, and then also what does emergency use mean?
Sure. These vaccines for this age group have gone through the same careful step-by-step and rigorous scientific process that all the vaccines for older adults and older adolescents have been through. There are 3 phases where we first determine what the safe and appropriate dose is for children of different sizes, and then the vaccine is tested for its effectiveness in this age group by giving a larger group of kids a vaccine versus a placebo shot. And then as data came in, it became clear that the data was compelling and positive, and it was presented to the FDA for review, careful analysis, and approval under the emergency use authorization.
So, Doctor, why did they break up the age groups the way they do, 5 to 11, 12 to 17, and then 17 and beyond?
Well, we have a lot of experience with testing and dosing vaccines for children of different sizes and different ages. The immune system matures over time, and we know we need to make no assumptions about how younger children will respond. So we look at adolescents, children in this 5 to 11-year-old age group, and then even younger children in separate groups to make sure we get the right amount, just as much as they need for a good response, but no more.
So many parents are probably worried, because this vaccine was developed so quickly. Can you maybe explain to us the time frame about how this vaccine was developed?
Well, I think that the fact that it's now available so almost surprisingly quickly is a wonderful story and a testament to really decades of science and development of the technology that goes into this vaccine. So it's not a new technology, but the fact that this pandemic was such a big problem, obviously disrupted the entire world, meant that we focused as a scientific community and a medical community on developing and translating the science that we knew about to an effective vaccine for this particular virus very quickly. In addition, there were other measures such as starting production of the vaccine prior to the final results of the trials, which meant that we didn't have a gap between showing that the vaccine worked and scaling up the production. That was really important. And we were fortunate that people were anxious to sign up for these trials. We had 150,000 people who participated in trials, and really we thank all of them because they made it happen faster. So it was really the process being speeded up, but the technology and the scientific background was already there.
So, Doctor, is this vaccine safe for children?
Yes, we believe that it's very safe, just as we've seen in adults and in adolescents. The clinical trials showed no serious adverse effects and showed immune responses that resulted in 90% effectiveness and great immune response in kids. It's as good or better than it is in adults and older kids.
Doctor, what's the difference about the vaccine for the 5 to 11 age group compared to the 12 plus or adult vaccines?
Well, the actual mechanism, the way the vaccine works is exactly the same, where the mRNA protein that mimics the protein that's on the surface of the virus is injected, and your body produces an immune response to it. So that's the same, but the dose is smaller for kids. We found that a dose that was only about a third as large as that needed for the older adolescents and adults was very effective. The kids responded very beautifully to it, and had a great antibody response that was measurable. So it's a smaller dose. Obviously, we are using smaller needles because they have smaller muscles that it's being injected into, but the overall mechanism and the way it's delivered is the same as it is for adults.
So, doctor, will children need a second shot and or possibly a booster somewhere down the road?
Well, the current recommendation and the way this is dosed is just like it is for older adolescents and adults. There's a first shot followed by a second dose at about 3 weeks, and that's the primary series for this. We know that for the adults, we found that the great initial immune response started wearing off a little bit after 6 to 9 months, and eventually a booster was recommended. We'll need to see whether children require that or not, and there will be careful monitoring for the next months and probably years about what we need to do to make sure that our immune response stays high.
The vaccine's obviously been kind of a hotbed issue over the past few months, so I don't know if some children have probably heard about it. So how do you go about explaining this vaccine to children and preparing them to receive it?
Well, I think that for parents, it's always important to explain why kids are getting vaccines. Their kids are used to getting vaccines. They've got them as infants, as they started school, and they'll get them as adolescents. And most kids, and we recommend that all kids get flu shots every year. So parents should be honest about what the children are going into the clinic for. They know that immunizations have an initial pinch when they go in, but that is very quick and short-lived. And our pediatric staff in clinics and hospitals know how to do this well and make it as easy as possible. So I think being honest is important. For most kids, especially for younger children, I would advise that they bring something to distract them, a toy, a book, or some other activity to keep them entertained and distracted as much as possible, and then be there to comfort them because they may be upset initially after the shot. And then in follow-up, I think it's important that the whole family is supportive. Have the older siblings and other family members support the child if they have some side effects afterward.
Doctor, some parents might be concerned about weight versus age when it comes to the vaccine. Tell us a little bit about that, what that means, and also does that apply to this vaccine?
It certainly does. So for many medicines, we dose them based on the child's weight, but sometimes we use age. And since this is a vaccine that's developed for a phase of the immune system development, it really is an age-based vaccine. So for children 5 to 11, they should get this 10 microgram dose. If a child turns 12 after the first dose, they get the dose for the 12 to 15-year-old age group, which is the larger adult dose. So this really doesn't really matter how big your child is. It's really about what we believe the right dose is for their immune system maturity.
Are there any side effects that we've seen so far from children?
Sure. So the initial side effects are often some soreness, maybe some redness and swelling around the site where the vaccine is injected, which can be managed with cold compresses or some TLC usually, and it's usually short-lived. Other side effects are similar to those seen in older adolescents and adults. People can feel tired, may have some headache. Some people get fever or chills, and some people get some GI symptoms. Kids may report some nausea or some diarrhea. All of these side effects are pretty common, easily manageable with over-the-counter medications and some comfort in TLC at home, and usually resolve within a day or two.
One of the big questions is, will it affect a child's puberty or future fertility?
That's a common concern that families have, and as parents we're all worried about these kinds of things. There's no evidence that there's any effect from this vaccine or any other vaccine on puberty or on fertility. And of course, we're monitoring long-term side effects for all of our vaccines, and for this one that is newer. There's really no biological reason why this should cause a problem with fertility, and we've had now about a year of monitoring to see if there were any effects that are starting to emerge as a safety issue. Most of the time, if there's a serious concern, it will really emerge within weeks to a couple of months after a vaccine comes out. So every month that goes by, we become much more confident. And finally, there are a lot of women around the country of childbearing age who have had the vaccine and gone on to become pregnant and to have babies. And as a matter of fact, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology strongly recommends the vaccine for women who are either pregnant or of childbearing age because the consequences of COVID are so serious for pregnant women.
Doctor, we've heard that children experience fewer symptoms if they do get COVID-19. So why do kids need to be vaccinated if they don't get quite as sick as adults do?
Well, it is true that for many children, COVID is a milder disease, but there are a fair number of kids that have gone on to become seriously ill or hospitalized or even died. So it can be very serious in children. There have been about more than 6 million cases reported, and that's probably an underestimate. And there have been thousands of children hospitalized, including here at Children's Memorial Hermann. So we see some very seriously ill kids. We also know that there are some conditions that are specific to kids when they get COVID, like a multi-system inflammatory syndrome that can cause serious long-term consequences for children's health, and that a good proportion of children can go on to have long COVID. So there are lots of reasons for an individual child to get the vaccine for their own protection. It also protects your family and your community because it will lower the overall circulation of this virus.
So, Doctor, if you had a child in the 5 to 11 age group, would you have any problems getting them vaccinated?
None at all. I would have been in line and gotten an appointment this week to be one of the first if I had children in this age group. My young adult children were vaccinated as soon as they could be, and it's been a real joy to watch my pediatrician colleagues post pictures of their kids post-vaccination this week, because everybody is excited to get this large group of at-risk kids protected so that they can get back to their normal lives. It has been, the burden of COVID for children has been disrupted in their family activities, school, so many of the normal things that we want them to experience as they're growing up. And this vaccine is one important step in getting all of our lives back to normal, and certainly the lives of our children.
Dr. Aitken, this has been some great information today. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, I hope that all parents will go talk to their pediatricians if they have any concerns, and that they'll get their children immunized as soon as possible.
Dr. Aitken, thank you for joining us today, and thanks for joining us on Facebook for Memorial Hermann Facebook Live. We will see you next time. Thank you.